You ever have one of those mornings where you find a stranger's footprint in your own backyard and just know your life's about to get turned upside down? That's how it started for me. I'm Wesley Brandt, 66 years old, retired preservation architect standing on the same lakefront where my grandfather built our cabin with his own hands back in 1947. And suddenly some lady in a white suit is telling me this property is now under HOA jurisdiction. You know what I mean? She had lawyers, she had fancy shoes, she had these forged maps, she even waived a so-called boundary revision from 2022, one I'd never seen in my life. But you know what she didn't have? She didn't have the right. Now, my granddad used to say the lake remembers everything. I was about 8, sitting beside him on the dock, knees scabbed from climbing trees, holding a fishing rod and listening. He'd say, "Wes Water holds memory better than steel, better than paper, better than anything some county clerk could stamp. That lake saw us before surveyors ever came, and it'll still be here long after lawyers are gone." I tell you, dawn on this lake, there's nothing like it. Gold light on the water, the same way it looked the day Grandpa hammered those foundation posts, fresh back from the war with calloused hands and a 1,000-yard stare. He built that cabin himself. Logs he cut and shaped and fitted like he was building his own future. That deed's still in my safe. Every year's tax receipt stacked behind it, chain of ownership unbroken, 78 years running. No one handed us this place. We earned it sweat and sawdust. So there I am, sipping coffee on the dock when I spot this paper taped to the piling, official-looking bold font screaming, "Notice of violation. Property non-compliant with community standards, immediate remediation required, contact Lakeshore Estates, HOA for details." Yeah, that happened. I peeled it off, felt the tape leave a scar on the old wood. First shot fired in what turned out to be an all-out war. I crunched back up the gravel my granddad laid in 63 boots, echoing memories, and stood in front of our cabin, Brandt 1947, carved into the cedar above the door. You know, when you walk inside, you still smell pine sap, tobacco smoke, old wood, the past. If I close my eyes, I hear Grandpa's hammer, 3 strikes, never wasted motion. He used to say wasted motion is wasted life. Every board in that place, every joint set with purpose. The safe he installed, heavy as a headstone, sits in my office. I spun the dial, felt the click, and pulled out the original deed, old surveys, tax records, even a letter Grandpa wrote in '85. He warned about encroachment, told me our rights come from history, not paperwork. Don't let him rewrite what we built. Out back, I found bright orange survey stakes stabbed in the dirt like little plastic insults, 6 of them cutting across ground that's never been in dispute. I yanked one out, no markings, just a silent claim. Then I hear it, a black SUV crawling up my access road, stops just shy of the property line. Tinted windows, no one gets out. They just watch, assess, building their case. I let them see me holding that stake, not backing down. After they leave, I find a camera 15 feet up a tree lens pointed right at my cabin. No light, no markings, just watching. I document everything. Old habits die hard. 40 years of preservation work teaches you memory isn't enough, evidence matters. That night I sat on the porch watching the water change from gold to copper to indigo. Grandpa used to say the lake had moods, but the water was always itself changing on the surface deep underneath. And right then you could feel a storm brewing. Those stakes, that camera, the SUV, they weren't random. Somebody was laying groundwork, betting I'd look the other way until it was too late. But I noticed I documented, I waited. 3 days later, 4 of them came back, black SUV, 10 in the morning, gravel crunching like they owned it. I was sanding the porch rail, maintenance's prayer in my line of work. The woman in white led them, heels sinking in the gravel, hair pulled back tight, smile, practiced but never reaching her eyes. She introduced herself, Corin Ashford, HOA president. Offered me $850,000 for the land. I didn't even glance at the paperwork. She tried the sentimental angle, said she respected the history, but the area had changed. The cabin didn't align with community standards. I let her talk arms crossed and finally told her, "You're wrapping theft in bureaucracy, hoping I'm too old to fight." She left an envelope, 8 pages single-spaced, listing every supposed violation: shingles not matching the color palette, dock too long, window frames the wrong style. They wanted to make me feel like a criminal for living in my own house. I called Fletcher, a sharp lawyer I trusted, and told him to pull every survey and HOA document he could find. "Someone's trying to take my land using paperwork," I said. Next, a certified letter arrived: mandatory compliance hearing, $45,000 in fines, appear before the board in 5 days or else. Death by 1,000 cuts, financial pressure makes staying impossible. I pulled out 70 years of records, every deed, every tax receipt, photos of 3 generations fixing that cabin. Then I noticed something: the old survey and the new boundary didn't match. My land had been shrunk not with a bulldozer, but with a pen. On paper, whole swaths of shoreline just disappeared. I called Fletcher again. They moved the lines. Not in the dirt in the files. That night I sat on the porch with Grandpa's shotgun across my lap. Never loaded, just present. A message: this is a line you don't cross. The next morning I get a call from the county office. They ask about a boundary change notification from 2022, supposedly signed for at my address. I never got it. Turns out the signature's not mine, it's C. Ashford. The HOA president signed for my mail intercepted the notice that would have let me challenge the change. Illegal. Elegant but illegal. I told the county they flagged the boundary for investigation. I called Fletcher, told him they forged the delivery. Now it's mail fraud, a federal crime. Didn't take long for things to escalate. Another certified letter eviction order, 14 days to vacate or be removed by county authorities. I cataloged it, added it to my growing evidence. They were testing me, trying to break me, but I'd spent a lifetime reviving buildings everyone else gave up on. I wasn't leaving. When the community center hearing came, 43 people packed into a room built for 30. The crowd pressed khakis, polo shirts. HOA diehards didn't look at me, just threw me. "Karen, sorry." Corin ran the meeting, lawyers at her side, deputy at the door. She showed ugly slides of my cabin, called it an eyesore, blamed me for dragging down their property values. When I stood to respond, she tried to shut me down, said my chance to speak had expired. But I laid out my case: original surveys, proof of fraud, the sign for notification. The room went silent. "You can't enforce rules on land you stole," I said, "and let the evidence speak." That night they staked violation signs in my yard, bright yellow, right where everyone could see. I photographed them. Let them stay. Let everyone see the kind of intimidation this HOA calls community. A few days later, the break in the case came from an unexpected place. A woman named Lillian Porter, gray-haired, nervous, standing on my porch before dawn. She used to work for the HOA filing records. In 2022, Corin asked her to swap out official maps for faked ones, move property lines, backdate files, make it look like families like mine had always been inside HOA jurisdiction. She did it under threat of losing her job and her reputation, but she kept everything: emails, old maps, instructions. She brought me a USB drive with all the evidence. With Lillian's testimony, we built an airtight case: mail fraud, forgery, conspiracy, 8 families targeted just like me. The story broke wide. County investigators opened a RICO probe. Corin's lawyers tried to bury us in motions, delay, suppress, gag order, but now we had the weight of truth behind us. The courthouse was packed the day of the hearing. Karen sat stone-faced, 3 lawyers deep. The judge, old, sharp-eyed, no patience for games, listened as my lawyer walked through every map, every deed, every email. Lillian took the stand, voice trembling but steady, confessing what she'd done and why. The other families spoke too, their stories different but the same, each one forced out by pressure, lies, threats. The judge's ruling was thunder. This court rules entirely for the defendant. All claims dismissed, fines voided, immediate investigation into the HOA. As for Corin, she was arrested in the hallway cuffed, read her rights cameras flashing. Justice, not revenge, just restoration. Driving home, I watched the sun set over the lake, the water glassy and calm. I thought about my grandfather, about how he'd told me the lake remembers. And now it would remember this, a family standing its ground, truth holding fast, one old cabin stubborn as the rock it was built on. So let me ask you, how far would you go to defend what's rightfully yours? Ever had someone try to take what your family built? Drop a comment. Share your story. Because sometimes the only way justice wins is when regular folks refuse to back down. And if you stuck with me through all this, do me a favor. Share this story, subscribe for more, and let's make sure these kinds of fights don't happen in the dark.